Alright, working on a '07 Rhino 660. We're going to put rear brakes on this. This one sounds really bad when you come to a stop. I believe the pads are metal to metal or close to it. I don't see any pad when I look it down in there. So it's pretty straightforward on these. Just lift your bed up and we're going to remove this caliper that's right there. Now you don't want to run your unit too much before you do this because your exhaust is right here and you have to get your hand in there. So there's two 14mm bolts that hold this caliper bracket on. The one on top is, if I can get it in there. The one on top is right here where my finger's at, 14mm. We'll take that one out and then we'll go beneath it and take the bottom one out. So it kind of faces back towards the back of the Rhino. It's 14mm and it's on top. So just look at your caliper and see that 14mm, and that's where you got to go. So I'm going to remove that. Alright, so I went ahead and broke it loose. I'm just taking that bolt out now. It's kind of long. I use a ratcheting 14mm open end to get it out. You might be able to get a ratchet in there. I just didn't want to mess with it because the shock's in the way and stuff to really reach in. So I just found it was easy just to get a ratcheting wrench in there. So now we'll go to the bottom. Alright, so we're on the bottom. I went ahead and took out that plastic factory skid plate. There's a bunch of 8mm bolts to hold it. And if you're like mine, if yours is like mine, you're in the mud sometimes, the mud will get inside this washer here and cake up around the bolt. Makes it pretty hard to get a socket in there. So I just took some brake cleaner and sprayed it down, and then took a pick and went around the washer and just cleaned it out. And all you're doing is going for this 14mm bolt right here. So I'm going to go ahead and get that loose, and then we'll pull this caliper down. And alright, once you get the two bolts out, just kind of take a screwdriver and finagle it out away from the rotor there. It's a pretty tight spot, but it will come out. And then you got these two pins here we have to take out. They're 5mm. These are what hold the brake pads into the caliper. You can see there, almost like a car. That one's still in there a little bit. Sorry, it's a little shaky. I'm not on a tripod. I'm underneath this thing. So once you get this out, mine's just a little muddy. It should come out and the pads should slide out. And this is exactly what I expected. We're metal to metal. There's no brake pad material left at all on this. And actually the rotor's been rubbing against it pretty good. Put a groove in the pad itself. So both pads. This pad actually has a little bit of material left in it, but this pad here is completely down to metal to metal. So that's the horrible sound we're hearing. So I'm not going to put a rotor on this because it doesn't feel too bad, and it's not like it's a high-speed application, and I don't really feel any grooves on it. So unless it's warped or something, which I don't feel that, I'm just going to leave it on there. I don't really care that much. Now you got to push this caliper back in, so you're going to want to get something that fits into this X here. You can use anything. I'm going to look around, see if I got a drift or some kind of punch that'll fit in there, and we'll turn it in. And then once that's turned in, we can start putting the new pads on. So let me find something. I'll show you what I do with it. Alright, so I have that piston compressed in. You can see this piston here. Of course it turned, so I want to show you. It's got kind of a let me get the light here. It's got kind of an X inside there. You see that there? And when the brake pads, as they wear out, that piston comes out. And you can't just compress it in like a car pad. That X there is to put something in there to turn it. You have to turn it inward. So what I use, here's a combination of what I used, is just a punch like this with a pair of vice grips on it. And you know, it's flat and it's about the same width as that X, and you just turn it in. I just got the vice grips on there to make it easier to turn in. So once you get them turned in, you're ready to put the pads in. Alright, so I got Yamaha pads for it. And I went ahead and took the old pads, have a spacer on the back of them, or a shim. I didn't buy new shims, so I just took the ones off the old pads and put them on the new pads. Like I said, this isn't, this isn't like a professional job here where I'm going to spend a bunch of money to put rear brakes on a side-by-side that goes out in the woods all the time. It's perfectly fine to reuse these anyway. I didn't order them. These brake pads are like $40 at Yamaha just for the stupid pads. So I'll just go ahead and reuse the shims off of these. Just pull them off. They just pull right off, and then they just go right back on the new ones. So we'll go ahead and put the new ones in there, and then we should be able to just slide everything back up after we put those 2 pins in. And alright, so I went ahead and put those 2 pins back in, 1, 2. It's pretty self-explanatory, but this little pad here is the one that goes up against your caliper piston, and then the 2 pins slide through these 2 holes right here, these 2 half holes. And then this big pad, the bigger pad, is your outboard, and that's the one that goes through, kind of hooks to this pin right here, and then goes up in there, and then obviously the 2 studs go through here and hold it up. So once you get those back on, go ahead and spread them open a little bit, because they'll want to kind of be closed up a little. So just take a screwdriver and just gently spread them open so that they're apart enough to get up over the rotor. So once you do that, then you're able to turn this around and kind of finagle it back up. Alright, once you get it slid back in there, just start your 2 14mm bolts back and tighten them, and then you're good to go. Just put your skid plate back on, you should be good. So that's pretty much it. Maybe pump your brakes a couple times. I mean, it's not gonna, most of your braking on these are from the front anyway, so these will pump up pretty quick, or it'll spring up. The piston will compress pretty quick back onto the pads. But that's pretty much it. So it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Probably the trickiest thing is just finding something to go inside that piston and turn it. I'm sure they got a special tool somewhere for $100 that you can buy. But we just improvise here because, I don't work on Rhinos or side-by-sides that much. I try to avoid it, but anyway, sometimes you got to do it. I just put a wet clutch in this and a couple other things to kind of straighten it out. I bought it. And just been kind of going through it and straightening things out on it. So anyway, that's it for brakes, rear brakes on a 660 Rhino. I'm not sure if it's the same on the 700s or not, probably. But that's about it. And I know this isn't a normal car video, but I figure a lot of car guys or people that work on cars have ATVs and side-by-sides. So we'll throw these in here once in a while when we decide to do that. Thanks for watching, and as always, God bless.